call the meeting to order at 7:10, even though it says 8:10 up there. We'll change it for next time. This is Tuesday, November 13th. Welcome to the West Covina City Council chambers for the scheduled meeting of the West Covina Planning Commission. Tonight, our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Menifee, and please remain standing for a few moments of silent prayer.
Please stand, face the flag, and pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Holtz? Here. Commissioner Woods? Here. Commissioner Menifee?
Here.
Chairman Stewart?
Here. Approval of minutes from last meeting of October 23rd. Any corrections? Hearing.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Menifee. All in favor? Aye. Approved. Okay, we'll move on to oral communications. This is a time when any member of the public may speak to the Commission on any matter within the scope of duties assigned to the Commission. Other matters included on this agenda may be addressed when that item is under consideration. For all oral communications, the chairperson may impose reasonable limitations on public comments to assure an orderly and timely meeting. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the Planning Commission and staff's ability to respond to public comments at this meeting. Thus, your comments may be agendized for a future meeting or referred to the staff. The Commission may ask questions for clarification if desired at this time. By policy of the Commission, oral communications at this time on the agenda is limited to a total of 15 minutes. Persons who are not afforded the opportunity to speak at this time may do so under item E later on the agenda. I do have one card to oral communications. It's Carolyn Arndt.
Improvement Association, and the issue that I'm here to address is the Hill. And we did on October the 31st, Halloween, go to Santa Monica Court, and the tentative ruling is that we did very well, that it probably will be stopped, that our civic center will be preserved as it is. There will be no medical center in there. We do have a follow-up, however. We are going to next try to get an initiative on the ballot that public lands within the confines of our civic center can never be sold for commercial development or housing without a ballot vote of our citizens. Now, I want to pass out to you the tentative ruling because it's very interesting. And you will see from our attorneys here at the city level, misstatements, fudged dates, and one blatant lie. And the judge called them on it. It was not a good day for our city. These are ugly, ugly times in West Covina. And all of us, including you, need to help us make it better. And that's what we're asking. I recently drove up to the Ken Oaks area. I think it's close to Orange and Badillo. That housing in a single resident area is awful. If I were to reach my hands out one of those bedroom windows and the people in the adjoining house, it's right next door. There is a walkway between. Those people were to reach out their hand, I think our hands would touch. And that is not acceptable. The house next door has been ruined because of that. A damaged pool, cracks within the house, and nobody's responsible. That is not good governance at all. This I'm going to pass out. Fabiola, can you help?
It's just give the staff, Carolyn. Just give them the staff there.
I'm going to just give them.
Good. Thank you.
That's all. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. That's the only card I have. Anybody else wishing to speak in oral communication? Lloyd Johnson.
There you go, lady. Good evening, Commissioners. You know, this is off the thing, and I just want to say, let everybody know, I know Commissioner Holtz is there, about the program that the city of Covina put on for the veterans. You know, if nobody got over there to see them, over there at Sierra Vista Middle School, they had 2,001 3x5 flags in the field. What a great honor that was for our veterans. And right in the center, the very first flag, was a Medal of Honor recipient of Covina who died in Vietnam. And I had the honor of setting that flag. I mean, it was such a great honor for the whole program for them to do. So if you didn't get a chance to get out there to see the Field of Valor, you missed one of the great sights that we've had around there for our veterans. Next year is going to be bigger and better. And so I just want to mention to everybody that if you ever get the chance to see something like this, take the time out and go over and see it, because this was about all the veterans, not just one. They even had a veteran there that on Veterans Day was Sunday. He just got killed from Glendora. He got killed on Saturday, right before Veterans Day. So I just wanted to mention that, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Cheryl, you make out a card when you finish, too, for us.
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much.
Yes. For the last, probably, 2 months, there's just been 4 of you here on the dais. It came to me, in fact, the question was asked of me tonight. If you have a tie, where does that issue go? Do you have any plans of filling that position soon?
Yes, we do. And I believe the answer to your first question is if it's a 2-2, it's a non-vote, right?
It's called a deemed denial.
Deemed denial.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Anybody else wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close oral communications and move on to the consent calendar. Staff, please, consent calendar.
Yes, there's 2 items on the consent calendar tonight. One is forthcoming, which we don't have any items currently scheduled for the November 27th meeting. We do have items for the December 11th meeting. We also have a requested 1-year extension for a conditional use permit and a planning director's modification that came before this planning commission last year for a church at 2133 West Garvey Avenue North. They're in the midst of doing their improvements, but they haven't been able to complete them yet, so they need an extension because they have the church hasn't begun operations in that site yet.
Good, thank you. Any questions of staff on the consent calendar? If not, I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Holtz.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Menifee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 4-0, carries. All right, we'll move on to item 4, which is public hearings. It's precise plan number 12-03, conditional use permit number 12-04, conditional use permit number 1207, and variance number 12-11. Category exemption. The applicant is Stephen Schmidt for 501 Vincent LLC. Location is 501 South Vincent Avenue. And the request is for a precise plan to allow the development of 2 new drive-through restaurants on existing 4.8 retail center. Request for the approval of conditional use permit for the operation of the 2 drive-through restaurants. Request for a variance for a sign to deviate from certain development standards, including secondary tenant director identifications. Who will have that staff report, please?
Associate Planner Ron Garcia will be presenting that report.
Good, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. Before I proceed, I just wanted to bring your attention to conditional use permit 1204 and 1207. The resolution should indicate 24-hour drive-through. As it reads now, it indicates drive-through aisle. The applicant is requesting the approval of a precise plan to allow the addition of 2 drive-through restaurant buildings, including a 3,895 square foot McDonald's and a 2,931 square foot El Pollo Loco. The applicant is requesting the approval of a conditional use permit for the operation of the drive-through restaurants. The applicant is also requesting approval of a variance for a sign to deviate from the certain development standards, including secondary tenant director identification. The site is currently improved with parking facilities serving the existing commercial building. Tenants include Goodwill, Dollar Tree, Pep Boys, and a Social Security office. The site has 3 driveway approaches on Vincent Avenue for ingress and egress to the site that would remain. The proposed fast food restaurant buildings are located on the northerly portion of the subject property, which is currently improved with surface parking. The proposed development would be visible from the surrounding area with the main visibility from Vincent Avenue. The proposed buildings would be surrounded on all 4 sides by parking spaces and landscape planters. Drive-throughs are proposed for both restaurants that encircle the buildings. 2 trash enclosures with decorative metal roofs are proposed at the rear of the restaurant buildings. The property currently includes a 6-foot wall along the property line, providing a buffer. The proposed McDonald's is contemporary in style and is designed in accordance with the restaurant chain's new corporate architecture. The main entry arcade is located on the east elevation, and 1 smaller arcade is located on the north elevation. Yellow striped metal awnings will be installed over the arcades on the east and north elevations, while aluminum overhead trellises will be installed on portions of the north and south elevations. Wall sconces will provide accent lighting against the building at night. The entryways will consist of glass doors with aluminum framing. The applicant is proposing to use the terracotta-colored earthly russet as the main color for the new building, and Aztec brick as an accent color. A portion of the south elevation between the drive-through windows will feature a decorative element that consists of 6 2-foot wide horizontal bands, alternately painted Aztec brick and earthly russet. Additionally, the arcades on the south and east elevations and the drive-through portion of the building on the west elevation will be painted snow white. In addition to the proposed McDonald's restaurant, the other fast food building, El Pollo Loco, is in contemporary style and is designed in accordance with their restaurant chain new corporate architecture. The main entrance to the restaurant is located on the east elevation. Entrances are also located on the north and south elevations and are comprised of glass doors with bronze framing and clear glass. The entrance features a metal vertical grille element that is dark bronze in color. The building will include dark bronze decorative rod-supported metal awning which overhangs on the entryways of the building, as well as a horizontal metal reveal along the northwest and south elevations of the building. The drive-through elevation also includes a metal awning covered dark bronze. The exterior of the building will include materials such as plaster and stone veneer along the base of the building. The applicant is proposing to use a mixture of earth tone color, stucco, cement plaster, including Van Dyke red and wood thrush. Custom wall light fixtures will provide accent lighting at night. The traffic consultant firm of Kimley Horn and Associates prepared the traffic analysis on October 3rd of this year. The study examined current weekday and weekend average and peak period traffic generation at the retail center. The traffic study found that the proposed fast food restaurant building resulted in 172 weekday AM peak hour trips and 116 weekday peak hour trips to the surrounding roadway network. The study concluded that the proposed project will not result in any significant weekday peak hour traffic impacts. The applicant, as indicated, is also requesting the conditional use permits to allow for 2 drive-through service aisles in conjunction with McDonald's and El Pollo Loco. The restaurants are both proposing to feature 24-hour drive-through service. McDonald's will use a 2-speaker box system, and El Pollo Loco will use 1. The drive-through aisle for McDonald's can accommodate stacking up to 18 vehicles at a time without interfering with on-site circulation. The drive-through aisle for the other restaurant can accommodate stacking for up to 8 vehicles at a time without interfering with on-site circulation. Staff has included for Planning Commission review information on queuing provided by the applicant, which is indicated in attachment 6. The average number of vehicles queuing for McDonald's at any given time is 6 to 8 vehicles and peak during lunch, and is anticipated to increase 8 to 10. The average number of vehicles queuing for El Pollo Loco at any given time is between 3 and 4 vehicles, where 8 vehicle stacking is provided. Therefore, the proposed drive-through exceeds the minimum requirements for both restaurant queuing demands. The municipal code establishes performance standards for the Planning Commission to determine if there is adequate separation between the residences and drive-through. As listed in the staff report, the code states that one or more of the following standards should be provided. Of those, the proposed project provides a separation between, as prescribed in number 1, in that the landscape planner along the rear property line is 8 feet in width, and also includes the 2-foot overhang, which is landscape portion of the parking space. A 6-foot high wall is also provided, and that separation of residential use and the 2 drive-throughs are greater than 50 feet, as the 6-foot high wall is provided along the westerly property line. In addition, the code specifies methods to ensure that noise levels do not increase to the detriment of neighboring residential uses. And as upon staff request, the applicant submitted a noise study prepared by an acoustical engineer. There are 8 listed methods to achieve that goal, as indicated in the code, and states that one or more of the methods must be used. And that's indicated as attachment 5 for your review. The noise study evaluated the proposed drive-through speaker boxes and concluded that the operation of the drive-through will not increase ambient noise levels by 5 dBA at all property lines abutting the residence. Staff has determined that 4 of the 8 methods are provided. The proposed drive-through complies with all the requirements of the code. A resolution of approval has been prepared that allows for the drive-through to operate 24 hours a day. However, the drive-through requires the approval of a conditional use permit, and the Planning Commission does have the ability to place conditions on the hours of operation if the commissioners have concerns with noise and late-night impacts to neighboring residences. The applicant, as indicated, is also requesting a variance. The applicant is proposing to install a freestanding 35-foot tall, 97.5 square foot tenant directory center identification sign located adjacent to South Vincent Avenue and the northeast corner of the project site. The site currently includes a freestanding 10-foot tall, 80 square foot tenant directory center identification sign adjacent to South Vincent Avenue. Moreover, the proposed freestanding sign would be classified as a center identification directory sign, and the current sign would be considered as a secondary tenant directory sign. However, the current sign does not comply with the sign code standards for a second directory sign. Again, the applicant is therefore requesting the approval of the variance to deviate from the secondary tenant directory standards, including the height and size. The proposed center identification sign is designed with 2 pylons with the 5-part sign face. The top of the sign indicates the shopping center name. The address would be located below the shopping center name. The sign is fabricated of aluminum with stucco finish. The base of the pylons would be brick veneer to match the proposed building, the El Pollo Loco building. A blade feature is proposed at the top of the sign, as listed in the staff's report. The proposed sign complies with all of the design standards as indicated in the staff report. In addition to the proposed sign adjacent to Vincent Avenue, there is an existing freestanding monument sign south of the proposed pylon sign adjacent to Vincent. The proposed freestanding sign is therefore the second freestanding sign on the property. The existing sign is the center identification directory sign. If the variance were approved allowing the new freestanding sign, the existing freestanding sign would become the second dairy tenant identification sign and would be a legal non-conforming sign. In the event that the sign is removed, it would not be allowed to be replaced. In conclusion, the proposed fast food restaurant buildings will be located near the southwesterly corner of West Covina Parkway and Vincent. Landscaping is proposed around the buildings and all within the parking area and will serve to enhance the aesthetic appeal of the site. The proposed architecture provides a variety of forms, roof heights, and colors. The project is compatible with the commercial uses in the vicinity and will result in providing additional commercial opportunities in the neighboring residential area. The applicant is further requesting the conditional use permits to allow 2 drive-through restaurants to operate 24 hours and a variance to deviate from the second dairy tenant directory standards for sign height and size. Additionally, staff has provided discussion on other issues with the proposed project, including those of the operation of the drive-through at 24 hours a day. In conclusion, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolutions approving the precise plan, the conditional use permits, and the variance. That concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is present, as well as staff from the engineering department, if you have any further questions.
Thank you, Ron. Any commission questions for staff at this time? Commissioner Holtz.
The existing sign that's there now, that's the permanent sign, and they're asking for a variance for the 35-foot sign. Is that correct?
No, what they're asking for, currently at the site, there's an existing monument sign that acts as the primary sign. Given the proposal of the 35-foot tall, 97 square foot in area sign, then that would then become the primary sign and makes the existing sign not meet the current requirements for secondary signs, and that it doesn't meet, it exceeds the height and the size.
Okay, the height being 10 feet versus 8 feet?
That is correct.
Okay, but the new sign, the 35-foot, if that becomes the primary, then the other one, the 10-foot, would become the secondary, and that's the one they're asking the variance on.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
One question, Ron. I believe we noticed within 300 feet. Any feedback at all?
That is correct. As indicated in the staff report, there was 150 owners and occupants that were notified. Staff did receive 2 phone calls. They were in support of the project. That also indicated that they were neighboring the project area.
Right, okay, very good, thank you. Would the applicant like to step forward?
I have a question.
Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Menvey?
The concern I have is lighting, and especially lighting at night. I presume those buildings are, how tall are those 2 buildings?
They usually range between, at the highest, probably 12 and a half feet. To go further with that question, there would be required by the engineering department a photometric plan, so they would not be able to exceed certain light levels at the property line when adjacent to residential properties.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Would the applicant like to step forward? And state your name, please.
Stefan Schmidt, 501 Vincent, 1525 South Broadway, Los Angeles, 90015. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you for hearing this project and considering it this evening. I'd like to highly commend the staff of the City of West Covina for working closely with me and abiding by your code standards and getting everything on this site to make everything cohesively work. Commissioner Menifee, the lighting concern was one of my concerns as well, but just to strengthen that, we are providing a great landscape buffer on the west side of the property next to the residences, 10 feet, and then it's going to be trees and shrubs, and then the light standards won't be allowed to exceed a certain height, and it will be shielded to direct all the light away from that property line. So I'm here to listen to anyone from the community if anyone wants to state some facts or have questions and comments. And again, thank you very much.
Any questions, Mr. Smith, this time? All right, seeing none?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I do have one card for, that's Herb Reynolds.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I, for one, am very happy to see this project come forward. In the past, the Commission approved a previous project at this site, which involved another fast food operation that obviously never came to fruition. So I think going forward with this would be the way to go. We're getting two outstanding operators in this particular field, and I have absolutely no issue at all with the 24-hour operation, considering the location of this project. There's a lot of people from West Covina and outside of West Covina that will traverse that area from the mall, from the theater, and all around that area that can certainly utilize a 24-hour operation. And it gives them another option of where to dine and to stay in the city and eat. I'm also very pleased to see actually a pylon sign that is 100% in compliance with our code. It doesn't happen very often. So it's nice to see, and obviously I have no issue with granting the variance for what will then become the secondary sign. So I'll be very happy to see something occur at this site. There's obviously plenty of room there, and I think this is an ideal project. So I urge you to go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Shirley Buchanan?
My only question is, I know the residential area that backs up to this place, and a 24-hour restaurant that has a speaker, what will that do, that sound do? I know he said that they're going to have a buffer and everything, but is there a study as to what that sound is going, how that sound is going to affect the people in the neighborhood right in back of them? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, you may get your question answered when we have the review here.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak for it? Irene Fleck?
I have two concerns. I'm concerned about the in and out. Now, the report said there were 3 entrances or exits. As far as I could tell, there's only 2. One that goes by the Japanese restaurant and one that comes in on the other side of the structure that's there. I don't see how we're going to have an easy flow in and out when it already is a problem. If you've shopped down there, the traffic is not easy. The other thing I'm concerned about is the traffic of people walking across to get to the entrances when there are cars driving around. People do not look very carefully when they're getting out, going to go get something to eat. And I'm concerned about the fact that we may have some people that are not necessarily hit, but very closely hit. So it's safety concern in his mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? All right. State your name, sir.
My name is Mel Cruz. I'm the area construction manager for McDonald's USA. I just want to address the noise level issue. Our current system on our speaker is actually, it has an automatic downgrading the sound level when the sunset comes in. When it comes to dark, it's almost, you can hear the speaker about 8 feet away, and that's about it. You can hear it 20 feet away. It reduces that sound automatically. That's
Very
all.
good, thank you.
Yeah.
You'll fill out a card for us, too, when you're finished?
What's that?
Fill out a card for
Oh, yeah.
us, speaker card. All right, anyone else wish to speak for it? Mr. Schmidt.
Stefan Schmidt again. I had a concern about the traffic ingress and egress out of this center. There is three, one next to the Japanese restaurant, one directly in front of the Social Security building, and then one way at the far north end of the building. So that one is a right turn in, left turn out. The other two are both right in, right out, left in, left out. And then I think the circulation pattern on the site itself is, thought out fairly well, so that's around the buildings rather than crisscrossing through the site like I've seen in other places. And the pedestrians have a secure path of travel across from the Social Security building onto a hardscape path in front of the building, so the crossings are at the drive-throughs, but of course they're going to implement stop signs and watch for pedestrians and all the safety measures that we possibly can.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt.
Clarification. Excuse me. The entrance closest to West Covina Parkway would be right in, right out.
Right in, right out, yes, correct.
Yeah, okay. And the next one is right in, right out. The only place where you can make a left, I believe, is by the Japanese restaurant where there's a signal light.
In the middle entrance too, you can make a left.
You can?
Yes. The middle entrance is left in, left out, right in, right out, and we're also...
It's not a protected one, it's not signalized, but you can't, it's not illegal to make a left turn there.
Okay, thank you.
And we're providing a dedicated left-hand turn lane in to the center going northbound on Vincent.
At that point?
Yeah, you can't see it on that one.
You can see it on...
Oh, I do.
Right there, yeah. Thank you again,
Thank you, Mr.
Commissioners.
Schmidt. Anyone else wishing to speak for the project? Do we have anybody who'd like to speak as opposed to it? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public testimony. Commissioner Holtz has a question for staff.
Yeah, question to staff. It's pretty unusual that we have two restaurants going in at the same time at the same location. I mean, I don't know if we've ever had that before or not. But just out of curiosity, if one of the restaurants would back out, let's say, and I hope they don't, would that negate the other one going in, or would we have to redo the approvals?
You would not have to do, let's say one of them decided not to go forward, the other one did, and they could get a permit and go ahead and build. The second one would probably have a different design than what's proposed tonight, so that one would have to come back, or have to go through some kind of process to get review of the changes to the site plan and changes to the architecture.
Okay, but if let's just say one just ends up going in, that would be all right too?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that one would not negate the other one. Okay, thank you.
I think there was a question that I think Ron would like to respond to on the noise study.
Yes. Go ahead, Ms. Garcia.
In response to one of the questions that was asked, as provided in your staff report, there was a noise study done again by an acoustical engineer, and as indicated by the applicant, the speaker box system is a voice control, and based upon so they can higher it, they can lower it, and in addition to that, based upon the physical layout of where the speaker boxes are, the study did conclude that given the separation from and distance from the residential property to where the speaker box is located would meet that requirement, would even be less than the 5 decibels as required by the code.
Good, thank you.
Just for knowledge's sake, that's attachment 7 in the staff report.
Right. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up for commission discussion. Anyone wishing to start? Commissioner Holtz, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of this project. I mean, here's two restaurants that are very well known, have great financial support from corporate, and that area there has been kind of, I won't say blighted, but just been left void for a long time. So I think it's a great project, and like I say, two good restaurants that have good corporate backing, and I think it'll be a great project, and I'm in favor of it.
Good, thank you. Anyone else to speak? Commissioner Woods? Okay.
Well, I'm 100%.
Put your... There you go.
I think it's a great project, and I think it's was designed correctly, and I'm 100% for it.
Good, thank you.
I guess I should say at least that I do agree with what my colleagues have said, and I really applaud the staff's very thorough explanation and very thorough efforts in putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, actually, I agree with my fellow commissioners that this is a fairly good-sized project for the requirements we have here. I mean, there's excess parking. There's more landscaping than what's required. The project's we've known about it for a while, and I'm happy to see it there. I don't think there's any problem here whatsoever. The main sign's in compliance, and the other one is a little bit larger than it has to be, but it also, I think it looks very nice, and it's a good secondary sign. As far as the drive-throughs, if we thought there was going to be a noise problem, we could bring it back in maybe 6 months for a review, but after reading the staff report and seeing what has been done there, I don't really believe there's going to be a problem on the backside there. So I'm definitely in support of the product, and I'm glad to see the 2 restaurants go in that area there. So it's kind of completes that whole area for the tenant, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I'll be definitely supporting it. So we'll go ahead and call for the resolutions.
Okay, we have 5 resolutions tonight. The first one is a categorical exemption. I'm sorry, what am I talking about? Okay, rewind that. We have 4 resolutions. So we're starting with the precise plan, which is 12-5488. I'm sorry, 87. So that's 87. Conditional use permit 1204, which is 12-5488. Conditional use permit 1207, which is 12-5489. And variance 1211, which is resolution 12-54890.
All right. Do we have a motion, please? Motion to approve. Commissioner Mesley, Commissioner Holtz, second. All in favor? No, excuse me. We have to have a roll call on that.
Commissioner Holtz? Aye. Commissioner Woods?
Aye.
Commissioner Menifee?
Aye.
Chairman Stewart?
Aye. This action is final and is appealed to the City Council within 10 days. Welcome with your project to West Covina. Best of luck. All right, we'll move on to number 5, which is a public hearing. It involves variance number 12-09, administrative use permit number 12-19, categorical exemption. The applicant is Elazar Becerra. The location is 3008 Cordova Court in West Covina. The request is for approval of a variance to development standards, including side yard setbacks, and to exceed the square footage allowed for guest houses. Request for an administrative use permit to legalize an existing expansion to the 2nd floor of the dwelling unit. We have a staff report, please.
Yes, the staff report will be presented by Senior Planner Fabiola Wong.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. The property is a 29,136 square foot lot, which is improved with a 3,422 square foot 2-story house and an attached 779 square foot garage. The applicant has expanded the existing dwelling unit and constructed accessory structures without the benefit of building permits. The matter was brought up to the attention of the Community Enhancement Division for enforcement. Back on February 29th, The applicant allows city staff to do an inspection at the site to assess the conditions and determine which structures needed to be addressed, and also for staff to know what was going to be the scope of work, and also how to bring those structures into compliance with city codes and building codes. Once staff visited the site, the following were the items that are here for consideration tonight for the Planning Commission. Although, as you will notice on the plans, there's numerous structures that need to be addressed, but not all of those structures require Planning Commission review and approval. So the Planning Commission tonight is considering a 168 square foot addition to the first floor on the west side of the lot. This is what it looks like. It encroaches into the required 10-foot side yard setback. A request to deviate from the required 10-foot side yard setback on the east side of the property to legalize a detached 326 square foot gym. I don't have a clear picture of that, but I'll try to show what it is. That will be the gym that is encroaching and into the 10-foot required side yard setback. A request to allow a guest house cinema that exceeds the 640 square feet in size that is allowed for a guest house. And that's basically the cinema right here. And also a 185 square foot addition to the second floor on the southeast corner, which requires an administrative use permit. So those are the items that are in front of the Planning Commission for consideration. As I said before, the single-story addition encroaches into the required side yard setback. It has been designed to basically blend in with existing original structure. What you see here on the side, I'm sorry, let me make that bigger. I realized it wasn't in the slide. That's actually an unpermitted enclosure that they did, and staff basically is recommending for that to be removed because it further encroaches into the side yard setback. The applicant also built the 3 contiguous accessory structures, which we cover, which is behind the pool area, which is a bathroom, a gym, and the cinema. The structures have a combined total floor area of 1,201 square feet and are detached from the house. The bathroom is the only structure out of those 3 that could be legalized without review and approval from the Planning Commission. The site is located in an area where the parcels are fairly large and the topography within the parcel varies. In this case, the parcel topography kind of slopes upward, and these detached structures are in that area, and that's rear slope area. The city typically allows structures to be built when there's a slope ratio of 50%. In this case, is about 28% in this particular parcel. As I mentioned before, the gym is the structure that encroaches into the 10-foot side yard setback that is required, and the applicant is requesting a variance. In addition to that, the cinema was built and is 727 square foot. This municipal code allows for guest houses to be constructed by right, but it limits them to 640 square feet. Based on staff visual inspection, obviously, we don't know how the footings were done, how these structures were constructed cutting into the hill. Building staff did have concern with the way that the gym was constructed. The reason being, I don't know if you'll be able to see from this photo because of the trees. That's the roof, and this is part of the wall. You can see the height. That probably won't meet the building code. In addition, you can also see how this window is pretty much on the ground, and that's another concern with weatherproofing, and who knows how it was actually constructed. Because of those concerns, staff, it's not recommending for that to even be considered for the applicant to explore or do any further work in trying to legalize it. In addition to that, the sum of both structures will be considered habitable space, and again, it way exceeds the 640 square feet allowed by the code for a guest house. Also, other departments such as Public Works has reviewed some of the work that has been done, and obviously drainage has been altered since it's a hill site. In any case, regardless of what structures are legalized, the applicant will be responsible for doing additional work to address the drainage pattern that have been altered at the site. In the past, the Planning Commission has allowed an oversized guest house, and the one that was allowed a few years back was one that was 720 square feet in size, although it was non-habitable space, and it didn't have any heating, didn't have any cooling, although only heating is allowed by, required by the building code. In this case, if the Planning Commission was to grant a variance to approve the cinema and also the gym, it will be over 1,200 square foot of habitable space. And although a deed is required, it could easily or easier, it could be converted a lot easier than if it was non-habitable space. Again, the administrative use permit is being requested for the addition of the second-story expansion that was done. This was also constructed on top of 124 square foot addition that was done on the first floor. Normally, this is something that it could be approved at staff level, but because of all the construction that was done and the director having the authority to forward the review to the Planning Commission, we thought it would be better to have the Planning Commission review all the structures at one time. The legalization of the single-story addition on the west side of the property wouldn't be detrimental to the adjacent property. The lots in this neighborhood, as mentioned before, are fairly large, and there's a 31 feet separating the subject dwelling unit from the adjacent dwelling to the west. In addition, there's a great difference of 10 feet, the adjacent property being lower. The combined floor area of the gym and cinema is 1,053 square feet, as mentioned before. The municipal code only allows 640. Therefore, staff is only recommending that the cinema be allowed to be legalized, because both structures, the sum of both the structures exceeds the 413 square feet over what's allowed. And staff doesn't believe that limiting the size of these guest houses has been an issue in the past. It's a standard that it's citywide, and there's never been an issue regarding the size. Based on staff inspection, of the premises, the staff is recommending that the Planning Commission grant approval of the variance request to deviate from the required 10-foot side yard setback on the west side of the property, and from the guest floor area standards to allow an oversized detached guest house cinema. Staff also recommends that the Planning Commission grant approval of the administrative use permit for the second-story addition expansion to the dwelling unit. And if the Planning Commission adopt resolutions, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt resolutions approving variance number 1209 and administrative use permit 1219, subject to the conditions of approval included in the resolutions. Also, if the Planning Commission agrees with the staff recommendation, the staff would like to include a condition of approval in the variance resolution that the gym must be demolished and removed as part of the scope of work. That concludes the staff presentation. The applicant is here tonight. The property owner, just to kind of give you a little bit more background, resides out of the country, although she was here back at the time that we did the inspection, and she was expressed her willingness to cooperate with staff and allow us to inspect the premises. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and like I said, the applicant representing the property owner is here tonight.
Thank you, Fabiola. Any questions of staff at this time? I do have one, Fabiola. On the west side, they look like a little hallway. You're talking about staff recommends taking down. It's an enclosed area. Yes, that right there. If that were taken down, would the variance be needed over there?
Yes.
It still need to be needed.
It's still needed. I don't remember exactly how much. I think that's about probably another 3 feet wide, 3.5 feet wide. So that will be encroaching further into the setback. And since it's non-habitable space, it's pretty easy to remove, and as you can see, it kind of steps back from the existing roof. So staff didn't even consider that it wasn't even a consideration.
Okay. Well, it looked like we had 7'2" originally, so that's not 3 feet there. In other words, that's less than that, so it's still going to be a variance needed. Okay.
Correct.
Thank
Yes.
you. Any other questions this time?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Menifee?
Fabiola, on attachment 1, the resolution, under item 5J, 1 and 2, there's a notation for the gym buildings. And if the Planning Commission follows the recommendation of staff, shouldn't those be removed? Or do I not understand something? It seems to me that it's included for some actions.
Yes, I think you are correct. I think it should be. We got those from the building division, so they're their conditions. But I think you're correct. If the decision by the Planning Commission is to not allow the gym buildings, we probably should just take them out of there.
All right. I thought I did. Thank you.
Commissioner Holtz?
Fabiola, do you know how this current event came to our attention?
I don't know all the details. I suspect that there must have been a complaint received by community enhancement. Normally, they don't necessarily share how that came to their attention, but the community enhancement officer came and asked. Actually, the property owner submitted plans, and when I looked at the plans and I tried to figure out what was going on, and I went on to look at the aerial, I realized that this was a hillside. Because if you look at the plans look like if it was a flat land, but it's not. And so then I went into, we have a system, a computer system, where we can check, and I realized it was a community enhancement violation, and that needed to be addressed. So that kind of triggered a further level of review and taking a closer look of all the structures. So exactly how it came to our attention, I don't know. I just know that community enhancement was working on addressing the violations.
Did we get any information from the area, the neighbors around, or concerns?
No, I didn't hear from any of the property owners. We did send notices, I believe 29 notices. Let me see. '29 notices went out to owners and occupants, and I didn't hear from any of the neighbors.
What about the HOA? Anything from them?
No, but there is a condition of approval that before anything can be legalized, they need to get approval from the HOA.
What about things that aren't legal?
Well, if anything that cannot be legalized, they will have to demolish.
Okay, so if HOA says that it's not legal, then they have to demolish?
Correct. And not only do they have to demolish, but they need to submit other requirements from Public Works because they need to, again, stabilize the hillside. So I believe a soil report is being required. And also we need to address, the Public Works Department will need to address drainage on the property. So even if the structures get demolished, that's just one aspect of compliance.
So I guess my concern is with all those things pending that need to be approved, like HOA and all that, why are we going forth with asking for other variances until that's cleared up?
Because the applicant needs to be able to say, this is what the city is willing to allow us to legalize, and then goes to the HOA rather than doing it the other way around in this case. Because if the HOA approves all these structures that the city cannot approve, I mean, it could be handled either way in this case.
But the homeowner association review is a different track. So all this stuff aside right now, let's say somebody in that area wants to do addition to their house, they're supposed to go to the homeowner association. When they do that is not part of the city's review or decision. So the city is going to have its own review, and the HOA has to have its own review, but the city can't hold up review of a project pending HOA if it's a permitted use.
Okay.
So permitted
if
use.
the city approves, let's say the city approves, and they go ahead with the construction, or, well, maybe they don't go ahead with the construction, but they approve, HOA can decline and refuse.
That's correct. And it can happen the opposite way, too, where the HOA can decline and refuse, but that doesn't necessarily stop us. We can go ahead and approve it if it meets our code. Then it's a legal issue between the HOA and the homeowner, and in my experience, the HOA is generally going to win if their bylaws are written correctly.
Okay. Yeah, it's just very confusing to me. There's so many things in this one that are, and I went out and reviewed the property and all that, and I had some serious concerns, but we've got variances for the second story and other things they're talking about demolishing, and there's just so many things going on. And I noticed that the previous planning commission approved that cabana unit, and it would accommodate 6 bifolding doors, and there's no bifolding doors. They put up permanent doors and made it a permanent structure. You know, so there's violations all the way through this thing.
Well, that's something that could be enforced by community enhancement. Again, there is a deed restriction.
Well, let me be clear. That other variance that she's referencing is not on this property. That was on a different property. What the purpose of that was to let you know that there had been some, but very few variances approved to exceed guest house size. So that gave you an idea of what the Planning Commission in the past has been willing to do in approving a guest house, but it's not this property. It was a different property altogether.
So the one that's in here on page, whatever it is, or page 6?
The 720 square foot.
About the bifold, that's not on this property?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry if I was not clear in the staff report. I was just trying to give you a little bit of background.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, staff, this time? Would the applicant like to step forward? Just state your name, please.
Eliasar Becerra.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I know what's going on with this project. I'm very familiar, It's not the way it looks. It's simple. The thing has to be demolished. It's not even as a door. Has like 1, 2, 3 posts, 4x4s, holding the roof. And these little things attached to the face of the existing house. It's nothing, I don't see really a structure thing hanging for fire department, for nothing coming. It's going to be removable. So to me, it's the right thing to do. But the other addition there, I think is done according to city code, because I've been doing some research how they do the foundation. Foundation is done properly. They have 4 rebars. I dig down, and it's like 24 inches depth into the ground. So to me, that 4 is a single floor addition is exceed what the new plans they have. So I do a little research, and to me, the cinema, I went around, and there's an easement on the back, but there's wide open area. So when you come to the job site, you see it's not an issue for safety, it's not an issue for structure-wise. It's been done well. My experience in construction is more than 20 years. And I can tell it's been done correctly. Plus, we're going to have the planning department to come and check. So please approve it, and then we go to the building department to do whatever they need to be addressed, and we will take care of that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions, sir?
Yeah. Did you do the construction on this house?
No, I check because owners always outside the country most of the time, and they hire me to come and check, to inspect, and see how the job was done. If it is okay or not, because I acknowledge when they bought it, this property is already done.
Are you in construction?
I'm a contractor license.
You're licensed construction?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak for the project here? All right, I do have 2 cards against it. First one is Lloyd Johnson.
Good evening, Commissioners. You know, I am really outraged to see something like this come before this planning commission. First of all, I'd like to know if this gentleman who's up here is he an engineer? He says everything's built up to code. If he doesn't have an engineering license, he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. I've worked in construction all my life, but no way I could come in front of this planning commission and say this thing's up to code. When things are built illegally, that's what it means. It's illegal. My problem is, if we let something like this go, which we can see on this picture right here, that it's cut into the hillside, and the window's right on the floor. I mean, that should throw up a red flag right there. You know, it wasn't even close to being constructed correctly. And the other problem is, we start letting something like this go, it's just going to escalate. The next person may just want to do it. You know, we don't have a clue how this stuff was built. We don't know if the rafters are built in right. We don't know if the vertical beams, everything's up there correctly. We don't know if the footing's correct. You know, it's completely out of compliance with what the city's all about. We can't say it's okay for this one little part of the city that's up in the hills somewhere where it can't be seen by everybody, but then it's not okay for someone that way downtown. I mean, it's just, we have to have our standards. And this isn't even close to what I feel what the standards of the city of West Covina is all about. I would recommend that this council, and like what part of, I just don't understand how the staff can recommend some of it that was built illegal. This is after the fact. We have to set a standard. We have to say, you know what? What's good for one is good for everybody. The standards are you come in, you apply for the permits, you pay for the permits, and then it goes from A to B to C on forward. You don't go to the last part of the whole project, have it completely done, have somebody catch you, like having a little monkey have his hand in the cookie jar and get caught. You can't do that, then come back and say, you know what? I want a permit to do it now. We have to say, you know what? No. You built it illegal, take it down. If you want to build it legally afterwards, let's do it again. But like they say, once you start taking down on the hill right there, we don't know what the structure of that hill is going to be like once like that. That hill could be compromised right now. We don't have a clue. We haven't had any great big rains and stuff like that to do it. So I hope that they would turn this project down and say, you know what, you built it illegal, tear it down and start over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Next up is Herb Reynolds.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'll tell you what, the more I read this staff report, the angrier I got. I'll tell you, no permits, no variances, no nothing. This to me is a total disregard for the building and safety codes of the municipal code of the city of West Covina. I mean, you have to ask, what are you thinking? My question, a simple question is, was this work done by a licensed architect and a licensed contractor, licensed builders? I mean, do these people not know that you have to pull permits? That it has to be inspected step by step all along the way? This is a total disregard for the safety of the city, for the safety of the residents of their neighborhood. This gentleman gets up here and tries to minimize and diminish and call it, it's very simple, it's easy. No, it's not. Because he stands here and says that it's more than in compliance? How do we know? We have no clue. It's impossible to know. This, you know, in addition to that, you know, I mean, to me, they're just trying to completely circumvent the system. I think it is, you know, my recommendation is to approve absolutely nothing and let them pay the cost, pay the penalty, and take the punitive action that they have coming to them. We simply can't not, in my view, allow this type of total disregard for our codes to go unpunished. You know, to me, it should be completely torn down and started all over again. We have no idea what they've done to the hills. We have no idea how this property was built, the danger to the other people. No permits, no variances, nothing. It just it can't go without being called to task. And like Lloyd said, if you let one go, I mean, it's a slippery slope. And I think we have to set the standards and let the people know that you're not going to get away with this in the city of West Covina. It's just too critical, too important to let it go by. So I urge you to deny. Thank you.
Thank you, Reynolds. Anyone else speaking against? Would the applicant like to rebut any of this testimony here? You want to say anything else? In favor? Come on.
To answer those two questions, I'm not an engineer, but I've been in this field long enough to understand many engineer minds. Some engineers, different countries, they take the test, they become engineers in this country, and they're good. And some of them are bad. I can tell, even I'm not an engineer, I can tell who's a good engineer and who's a bad engineer. Here we're talking something simple. One-story house. I go down, I dig, and I see the depth of the foundation. I see the wire of the foundation. I've been doing a lot of retrofitting in San Francisco, where they built, I think, 100 years ago, under those places. It's not allowed to build houses. So through the time, those houses run out of level. I do retrofitting. Because my experience doing retrofitting, this house is nothing. I'm not an engineer, but I have all the experience on structure, on single houses, 2 stories. And once again, you go and see the house, you will see what's the condition of the house. I think the house, whatever they did, has been done more than 8 years. You'll see no cracks, you'll see nothing there. Plus, I think safety and building department has to go and check how it was built. So I'm able to show city how that was built. That's all I can say.
You say it was done 8 years ago?
My estimate, what I see right there, I think it's been more than 8 years ago.
More than 8 years?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Do you know if it was done by a licensed contractor at all?
Yes, I can tell that because
But you
how
don't.
they do, the way they run the stucco, the way they run the finish, the way they do the foundation, the way they do the insulation, the set they use with the height of the top, or the ceiling, I can tell they've been done according to the code. And I think I can prove to the city, whoever did at that time, it's been done by the code.
Because you know,
The licensed contractor was?
No.
because you know, most licensed contractors will not take a job of this scope on without permits. I mean, it's very risky to him, so it's questionable. Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Jeff, do you have a comment?
Yeah, if I could, before you get into discussions, actually, after you close the hearing, maybe you should close the hearing first.
Right. We'll close the public hearing. We're going to go to public or commission testimony now.
I just want to try to make sure that's understood what the task is at hand here tonight. And it is very confusing. Staff was equally confused when we were drafting the staff report and trying to go through everything. And there are other things that are going to have to be addressed here besides the things before you tonight. Because what's before you tonight isn't the question of whether it meets code or not. That's not a building code. Your job is zoning code, not building code. So whether who you choose to believe, whether it meets code or what you choose to think there, is really irrelevant for the decision that's before you tonight. That will be the job of the building department if or when they ever get to a stage of pulling permits. They'll be the ones that determine that, not anybody in this room tonight. So I want you to be clear on that. We already had the discussion on the HOA, so I think we already know what their role is. That's not a question. What they choose to do, they have a completely independent. What they choose to do is independent from what we choose to do. When staff reviews these type of situations where you have somebody who has done something and is trying to get it permitted after the fact, what we usually do is try to look at it and think about, well, what would we do if it wasn't there? What if this was coming in? And we look at past practice or historical precedent that might have been set. And just to start out with the so that's what we looked at. You have two proposals here, two applications before you tonight, and they're very distinct. And I think I want to make sure that you understand the distinctness between a variance application and an administrative use permit. Okay, so a variance application can be approved if the Planning Commission determines that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances on the property and that they're not granting a privilege to this property that other properties don't have. So that's the litmus test that you're looking at, not whether it can stand up to the building department scrutiny, but whether there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances and they're not granting a privilege that other properties don't have. So the two issues that are really before you tonight, well, there's the third issue. I'm going to not talk about the gym because I think we've already gave that presentation. We don't think that is supportable. We don't think that's something that we're recommending. So I'm not going to answer that unless you guys have further questions on that. But if we talk about the addition to the house over here, which I'm sorry, it's a 168 square foot addition. It's a one-story addition to a house, requires a 10-foot setback, and they have a 7-foot 2-inch setback. So they're asking for a variance of 2 feet 10 inches, and the ground is 31 feet to the next house, and the ground drops off substantially here. So when we look at that, we thought, well, we don't feel that there's a real concern there, and it is an exceptional extraordinary because there's a big difference in grade here, and because of the separation of the units. And because of that slope, those units will never be much closer together because there's a slope that separates them. So that's why we recommended approval on that. On the cinema, that goes to the discussion we had earlier on the other guest house that was approved several years ago, 720 square feet. Cinema is 727 square feet. So it's just a few feet bigger than that. Well, so thinking about that and looking back, there is something to be said that we have granted that privilege. So we're not granting this property a privilege that we haven't granted other places in the past. So that's the reason staff is recommending those two, and that's the reason we're recommending those two approvals. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with that. Your job is to independently evaluate and determine what we presented, what the public's presented, and what you read and see. That is your responsibility, not just to take our thoughts. That's a variance, and the variance has a standard that has to be met, that it's exceptional, extraordinary. Now, the other thing that's before you tonight is a two-story addition on a two-story house. It's an administrative use permit. So you have a 185 square foot second-story addition on a almost 1,500 square foot second story that's existing. So that test is a different test. It doesn't have to be exceptional or extraordinary. It's an administrative use permit. The findings there are more about, does it fit into the context of the neighborhood? Does it fit into the context of the existing house? So they're two different tests. They're two different things you have to consider. So that's my input, and so hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight on why we're recommending what we're recommending.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, we're down to commission discussion. Anybody wish to start off? Nobody?
Sure, I'll
okay.
make a comment.
Commissioner Murphy?
I spent a lot of hours examining all of these documents and thinking I understood things, and then realizing there was more than I needed to understand. Visited the property, looked around, scratched my head, and went back and read some more. And I think Jeff just did a good job of differentiating the tasks before us. Because when we look at the property, when we look at what's been done, I think it's easy to fall into that, easier to understand difficulty of the building code. And that's not our business. And I'm glad he reminded us of that, because it took me a long time this weekend to try to figure out in my own mind that that's exactly where we are. So I thank you for that. I think that there are some things that we could compromise in doing from a planning standpoint. They're still going to have to meet the building code. There's still going to have to be investigations of how things that were done and whether they meet this city's requirements. And I'm pleased to know that that will happen, and would want that in order to look at what we're looking at in the variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Holtz?
Yeah, I'm concerned again about the setback. It's only a couple of feet, but it's still, you know, it says that it's supposed to be 10 feet, and it's only 7.2, and therefore I think that needs to be corrected before I'll even consider going forward with the approval.
Okay, thank you. Comments, Commissioner Woods?
I'm confused.
You're confused? let me go first. You figure it out. Well, if I go back on this to like it was a brand new application, and these were things that were required before it was ever built, because of the size of the lot, it's almost 30,000 feet. It's 10 side up on one side and 10 side down, 10 feet down on the other side. So there's plenty of room and 31 feet between the houses. I would have probably have approved the variance on the west side, because if it was needed, it wouldn't make a bit of difference to me. And as far as the administrative use permit, there was also a big, huge upstairs already, and this is only 185 feet, I believe. I would have approved the administrative use permit. On the other side of the house, keeping in mind the 640 feet for a guest house is the norm, if there was a reason for 727 with a variance, the fact that it's on this size lot and a hill behind it, I probably would have approved it, all three of them. But as it turns out right now, I don't have any reason to know why it was even 727, because they didn't show us a reason. And plus the fact that it's already existing and it's a problem. So, but like Jeff told us, we're not involved in the code of it. So the variance actually on the east side, if we don't approve the gym, there is no longer a variance there, right? Yeah. So what it amounts to give them a break as far as planning commission is concerned, I would approve the AUP and the variance on the west side. And unfortunately, we'd have to go with a 727-foot square foot guest house. And so that's what I would do tonight if we go on from there, and give them a break with that. Any other comments?
If you would care to put that in the form of a motion, I'd be glad to second.
What I just said?
That's correct.
I'll put it in the form of a motion.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion and we have a second by Commissioner Menifee, so we need resolutions, right?
Just want to make sure, because we just want to make sure we're clear. This is a very confusing topic. Your motion is basically to approve what the recommendation is? Am I reading that correctly?
Approve the AUP, approve the variance on the west side, and we had no choice on the guest house unless we approve it at the 727 as opposed to 640. If there was an actual reason for that 8 years ago when they brought it in, I would have approved it. So that's what I'm going on right now.
Okay, I understand. So I'm sorry, so the resolution numbers? Oh, is this functioning? Okay. The resolution numbers for the variance is 12-5491, and for the administrative use permit is 12-5492.
Okay, need a roll call, please?
Commissioner Holtz?
No.
Commissioner Woods?
No.
Commissioner Menifee?
All right.
Chairman Stewart?
Aye.
So that's a 2-2 vote, and as we discussed earlier, that's a deemed denial. You have to have an affirmative vote for the project to be approved.
Correct.
So you could discuss it further if you think there's another way to do it that you might be able to get the third vote. If not, then that's how it stands. We just move forward.
Well, the two no's sound pretty solid, so I don't think we have much choice except to go to 2-2, right? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So what that means is it's denied, and you have the ability to appeal within 10 days of City Council.
City Council, right.
That stands. And you can speak with staff tomorrow if you have any further questions.
Very good, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to non-hearing items. Item 6, which is a study session on single-family house review standards. Staff report, please.
Yes, this is going to be a study session just to cover the development standards for improvements to single-family houses in the code. Those are found in the residential agricultural zone, single-family zone section of the West Covina Municipal Code. The code as it stands today was originally adopted in 1977. There was a previous code before that, but at that time, additions to single-family houses were permitted by right. So there was no discretionary review. You didn't have to come to Planning Commission. There was no such thing as administrative use permit. If you want to do an addition to your house, no matter what size, you want to tear down your house and build another one, if you want to build a second-story addition on a one-story house, all those things were allowed by right. You just got a building permit and went and got it constructed. Over the years, the city has instituted changes to the municipal code that require notification and require review by staff or by the Planning Commission for certain types of additions. And basically, those have come apart for two main reasons. One of those is something called mansionization, which I'm not sure is a real word, but we use it as if it was one. And basically, that is when a house is constructed that's much larger than the other house in the neighborhood. So you take a neighborhood of 1,200 square foot houses that are one story, someone buys a lot, tears it down, and builds a 3,600 square foot house, two-story, and it looks like a mansion and compared to all the other houses around it. That's mansionization. The other issue that has come up is of privacy, and the privacy issue is generally when you build a two-story house in a neighborhood of one-story houses. So those are the two main reasons that these review processes have been initiated. We have 5 different review processes that have been established, and then there's a subcommittee, and I'll cover all 6 of those topics quickly here tonight. The first type of review, well, let me say this. The first 3 that I'm going to review, which includes a maximum unit size exception, large homes, and large expansions, were all adopted in the early 90s as an effort to address mansionization issues that were coming about at that time. The last 2 were adopted in 2008, just a couple years ago. Some of the, I think, current commissioners were on the commission at the time, to mostly address privacy issues and also just large structures being constructed. So the first one is a maximum unit size exception. It has been the most common one that we've had reviewed over the 20 or so years that it's been in effect. It does require an administrative use permit. It's a staff-level review that requires notification of property owners and occupants within 300 foot of the subject property. The code establishes maximum unit sizes for single-family lots in the city and requires approval of an administrative use permit to exceed the maximum unit size. So it basically sets this kind of what I will just term as an arbitrary number, because there's no science necessary to it. It's just a number that at the time the Planning Commission and the Council were comfortable that this was a good number to establish the difference between when something is permitted by right and when something needs to be reviewed by someone, either staff or the Planning Commission. Generally, MUSEs requests are additions that include a second story, but they're not always. But most of the time they are. The maximum unit size for each lot is based on the lot size. The larger the lot size, the larger the floor area of the house that is allowed. So that's a guideline there. And a lot of times there's confusion between an MUSE, a maximum unit size exception, and a variance, because it does sound a little bit like you're granting a variance if you're granting an exception to something. But that's just terminology. It's just semantics. It's not the way it's set up in the code. And maximum unit size exception is not a variance. The code establishes standards to allow property owners to request that and establishes findings and criteria when it should be approved. So it's at what we call a threshold, whereas a variance is a request to not comply with code standards. So there's a big difference between the two. And that's the one thing I'd like to leave you with tonight, even though sometimes it sounds like that it's a granting of a variance. It's not a variance. It's allowed by the code to request that. The second type of review is a large home. And a large home is part of the calculation for the maximum unit size exception. A large home is a modification to a single-family house that exceeds the maximum unit size by more than 25%. And all these are number things, and they're kind of like Pythagoras throws these things out, and they're kind of confusing to all of us. So I haven't presented you with all the tables and numbers because I'm not sure that that's really worthwhile endeavor. But in this case, it's basically a simple calculation of you'd figure out what the maximum unit size exception. If you exceed by 25%, then it's a large home, and that requires a conditional use permit, which is reviewed by the Planning Commission and requires the notification of 300 feet. Most large homes, almost all large homes, involve a second-story component. The other process that was established back in the 90s was the large expansion, which is a different measurement, and that measurement is the increase in the amount of gross floor area for a single-family property. So for single-family properties under 20,000 square feet, the threshold for expansion is 1,250 square feet. There's no magic number on that. It was just that was the right number they felt was a good barometer of when something goes from being allowed by right to when something should be reviewed. And the larger the lot, the higher the threshold for review. So when you get up to acre-sized lots, I don't remember, it's like 5,000 square feet or something. It's a big addition. That requires an administrative use permit. Then we get into the things that were established in the 2008 code amendment that was done. Over the years after those three processes I just described had been put in effect, it was noted that while most second-story additions required one of the above-mentioned approvals, there were some new second-story proposals and additions to second stories that were under the threshold. So we were having some things that went to some second stories that required notification and approval, while others were permitted by right. And there was some concern, especially on the part of the Planning Commission at the time, that probably wasn't a good thing, that if somebody has, just by reducing the size of the second story, you can eliminate the ability to notify your neighbors and go through a discretionary review. So the municipal code now requires review of accessory buildings or the sum of accessory buildings that exceed 1,000 square feet. The only exception to that is that guest houses are not included in that, so it would have to be, and the issue there it was privacy to some extent, but it was also more concern about possible people putting in businesses, building a large storage building or garage. We had cases where you had a garage that was constructed that was larger than the house. So the concern was there, well, is this really now a single-family property, or is it a business that somebody's living at? So code was changed, and now that requires approval of an administrative use permit. Lastly, we have the subcommittee process that was established in 2008 by code, although that really initiated in 2004 when the Planning Commission chairman at the time appointed 2 commissioners based on his authority to do so under the code at the time. And it was operated for about 4 years under that authority, and then the code was adopted in 2008. It is, in the 2008 code established a subcommittee and included standards for review and criteria for review, basically for additions or changes to a single-family house that are visible from the street. And the code allows the chairman of the Planning Commission to appoint 2 members of the subcommittee and an alternate. So that's still how it's functioning today. So that's a sort of a quick overview of the types of changes to single-family properties that would require discretionary review.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Any questions of Jeff on that? Pardon?
That helps.
Yeah, it was very good. So we'll receive and file that report. All right, we'll go back up to oral communications again. One more chance for anybody to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Carolyn Arndt.
Yes, Carolyn Arndt. I've lived here since 1957, so I've seen lots and lots of changes, some of them wonderful and some of them not. I already addressed one, and if you're going to talk about housing, I would ask you to look at the plans for that development. At one time, it was a McCoy's Market. And if you lived here for a long time north of the freeway, you will know that. And I have not a clue what year, because from 2000 until 2007, I was flying troops around the world, so I wasn't here. And it well could have gone in at that time. But and my guess is that the Planning Commission would have turned it down, and our city council would have overlooked that, because that's what they did with the Hill. The Planning Commission turned down the development of the Hill at the Civic Center, and our city council did not care. So I would guess that that's what they did, because you people are here to look after us. And that's what you do. That is your job, and you do it. But they don't do their job, and that's one of the issues in this city. So I would beg you to look at Ken Oak Street. Lou lives close to that, and I thought it was called Ken Oaks, but he tells me it's like Orange and Badillo or something. I just went up there with somebody, with Phil Marino, so that's how I got there. I didn't know it was there. But it's obscene, and when you talk about the privacy issue, those people are looking down in that lady's bathroom window and bedroom windows. Her pool, it's cracked, so she can't use it, but she has absolutely no privacy. And she didn't even know there were going to be 2-story buildings. They were not told in that neighborhood. That's not fair. That is not treating the citizens well and looking out for their best interest. And that's poor, poor governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any other comments or communication? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and down to commission reports and comments. This is a time when any member of the commission may bring a matter to the attention of the full commission that is within the scope of duties assigned to the commission. Any item that was considered during the agenda is not appropriate for discussion in this section of the agenda. No commission discussion or action can be considered at this time. If the commission desires to discuss an issue raised by a speaker or take an action, the commission may vote to agendize the matter for a future meeting. Do we have any commissioner reports or comments? None? Commissioner
I seem to have this every meeting, but can you bring us up to date on the vacancy of our commission member?
Well, you beat me to it tonight. I was going to tell you.
Thank you.
Right now, it is scheduled for next week. It's on, the item is closed. The recruitment, for lack of a better word, has closed, and it's scheduled for the November 20th meeting last I saw. So I think it'll be on next week. If it's not on that, it'll probably be on the December 11th, or on the first meeting in December.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any other
Yeah,
comments?
yeah.
Commissioner Holtz?
Jeff, when they approve somebody, what's the term, until May, March, or?
I don't know if they'll change anything. I mean, it's the council, so they have some ability to make some other modifications. They're the ones that set the term to begin with. I guess that's my point. But the term, all the terms of the commission right now are expire on March 31st, is my understanding.
Next year.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Woods, any comments? No? You okay? All right. I just say one thing I asked last time about the Chase Bank building. They're going lights out on it right now, so it's going to be, well, it's